Okay. And we're starting the second hour of broadcasting, and we've got a couple of guests, so we're not taking phone calls today. We've got...
yeah, Mike, we can take some calls if...
Kirsten. Kirsten. You know what? Introduce yourselves.
Okay, my name is Stephen Handwork. I'm the executive director of the Louisiana Democratic Party.
And I'm Kirsten Alvanatakis, another good Irish name,
there
right? I do communications for the Louisiana Democratic Party.
Communications. Okay. Now, let's see. So, we're on WTQT 106.1 LPFM. You can also pick up rebroadcasts on Facebook, Baton Rouge Local 198. And you can also pick it up on YouTube. And we're glad to have you guys here. And I got a problem with both parties. Okay? Thank God I am party free.
And thank God I am Democrat.
Well, but anyway, most of my problems are with the Republican Party. But, you know, I've got a problem with politicians, with NGOs in this state that take the money unaccounted for. I mean, to me, that's no more than stealing. Okay? I've got problems with politicians that want to give themselves a raise that year. You know? I've got a problem with politicians on the city council that want to give themselves huge raises. They're Democrats. I've seen, you know, the major problems I've got is what, you know, with this Tea Party deal and all of that. I wouldn't want to be... I mean, why would I want to be in a party that would have me as a member? You know? But, you know, I've got huge problems with both parties. That's why about 5 years ago, I just pulled out of the Democratic Party. Been a lifelong Democrat. And when they pull that scam up at the Capitol trying to give themselves a raise, that just tipped it over the top. And they had a lot of people, Democrats and Republicans, for that. But you know what? I didn't see any recall efforts on the Democratic part. Republicans, there were quite a few of them up for recall for that. And, you know, I guess I'm of the vein that to hold the politicos' feet to the fire, whatever party they're in. You know, I was for single payer instead of Obamacare. They didn't bring Obamacare far enough. They went on for a year with this Obamacare thing. And, you know, hopefully it's going to work. There's a lot of problems with it. It takes time to work out the problems. But they didn't go far enough. And me, as a labor union guy, we didn't even get a tumble on the Employee Free Choice Act. They went on and droned on. They went on so long, Ted Kennedy died. You know?
Well, Mike, let me interrupt you, because he can go on and on and on
and will
if allowed. And right
Ted
now,
Kennedy died waiting on health insurance.
Yeah.
We asked you to come in. Let's talk about what you came in to talk about.
We're going to get to that, Neil.
After Mike gets.
We're going to get to that. So let's get to it. Let's get to it.
What brought you in here?
Okay, well...
we got to get both sides of the story.
Sure. And look, I think that that's incredibly important. You bring up a lot of good points. You know, we are the big tent party, or who was that person that said that, you know, I don't belong to any organized party, I'm a Democrat?
Will Rogers.
Thank you, Will Rogers. So, you know, we do have a big tent party, but one of the things that we are, there is no division in us. At our previous meeting this year, earlier, we called for an increase to the minimum wage. That was early spring of this year, because we know that, you know, let's just look at it how it is. I believe that when we're not paying a living wage to workers, then the government our tax dollars are going to subsidize the businesses. And so our committee came forward and put forth a resolution. Now we're getting ready to pass some new resolutions as well. The first one is we're going to increase our pressure on raising the minimum wage. We want to make sure that our voice is heard very loud and strong with passing, actually it passed out of our resolutions committee with a unanimous vote, and that's protecting public workers' pensions. A great interview that you guys just did in the last hour. I was able to listen to it on my drive in. And also, too, we're passing a resolution supporting the fast food workers' fight for a living wage. That passed out of our resolutions committee with a unanimous vote. I think once it's brought before our full body right after the first of the year, right before the legislative session, so that we can make sure our voices are heard, that the legislators are going to get that resolution for us. I certainly hope our members will weigh in on that. And, of course, lastly, we want to support our Walmart campaign. I heard tell that somebody in this room actually still shops at Walmart.
Right here.
The
other one will lie to you, but I'll tell you the truth.
I understand. But again, it goes down to the basic decency of, if you give up of your time and you work hard, you should be able to at least take care of yourself. And, supporting a living wage, supporting a raise in the minimum wage is a tide that lifts all ships. It really does, because as a friend of mine said down in Lafayette just on Thursday, he told me, he goes, you know what? If we don't actually start paying the workers a better wage, who's going to buy all the crap that they're trying to sell at all these other places?
Well, let me tell you something about Mike. Mike did admit going to and shopping at Walmart, and I want to let you know that when he wasn't just making up about he goes to the management and tell I promise.
I live for that.
He seems so quiet and demure, though. I don't know. I don't know if I believe it or not.
I can promise you that happened.
Now let me ask you a question. Now, like I did the manager, the director at the Sam's Club the other day, and I told him, the good news about the employees, they're going to get their jobs back and get back pay and this, that, and the other. How would you feel? How do you think this store director, which I think these decisions weren't in their hands to fire these workers?
Of course not.
I think this decision came from the corporate in Bentonville. And but say you're a store director or manager over one of these Walmarts, and now you've got, say, 5 or 6 guys, or maybe 2 or 3. All this was nationwide that was ruled against Walmart. And now you got these people walking back into the store that you had to fire, and they're bulletproof. They're bulletproof. Hey, you know what? If I'm working in produce, that store director better look out for cucumbers coming at him in places he might not like it, okay? But that's what I'm saying. I mean, these guys are bulletproof.
Well, you know what? I certainly think that for a long time, we've been asking, we've been begging for someone to have the back of these workers because they do work hard. And I'm really frustrated by the individuals who will get out there and they'll say, well, they should be working for a better living for their families. They should actually be getting new skills and they should be going out there. At the end of the day, we still need thousands of Walmart workers to keep all of their businesses open, right? We still need the people to work the drive-thru at McDonald's. We still need people working in these places, and demanding and standing up for saying, look, you know what, you guys, we deserve to give them a living wage. That's important. But when these corporations are at a place where they're only being governed by their quarterly profit reports, and that's their only judgments, that makes it very difficult.
Well,
that makes it very difficult.
And the thing, and I think the majority of the people get this, because the majority of the people are workers, working men and women here in Louisiana, and they understand that in order to get to work, you got to have some kind of transportation, a vehicle.
Right.
In order to get in that vehicle, you have to have insurance.
Yeah.
In order to start the vehicle, it's got to have gas. And if it's anything like one of my vehicles, you're going to have to add a quart of oil every now and then to it. So the tires, the maintenance, just on the vehicle alone. And then if you have, if you're a single parent, you've got to look at some kind of child care. You've got to look at the food to feed not only yourself but also your kids. So you've got how some of these people make it. How do they make it? They work 2 to 3 jobs. And then when you look at the big picture as far as your child having problems in the classroom, it might be contributed to the single parent is working all the time and has the grandma or the grandpa or an aunt.
Or latchkey.
Yes.
The kids are coming home by themselves to make their own dinner.
And so, let's look at the big picture. I mean, we have to have these people making a decent wage. And, go ahead.
Right.
I mean,
look, the president gave an amazing speech this past week, and he explained that we're really facing 2 problems. The first of which is the growing economic inequality that we have, but the second is the declining economic mobility. So the American dream is truly under assault right now. Okay? We know that for the past 40 years, wages have been flat, but corporate profits are soaring for the most part. Now, look, I know there are companies out there struggling. I actually own my own small business, so I know what it's like to meet a payroll. Okay, now I run the Louisiana Democratic Party, and I know what it's like to make a payroll. I know what these business owners are going through, and I don't think that all business owners are bad. But what I do think is that the key to success is treating your employees well. Okay, making sure that they share in the success of those businesses. That's huge. That's huge when we talk about this. So with the president actually turning up the heat and starting to place a lot of attention to these matters, I think we might actually finally get something done. At least I hope so. Here in this state, I know that we're going to be organized better than we've ever been before to go into this legislative session. I think that we're going to be fighting for the working men and women of this state, and I'm looking forward to that fight.
How do you, I know we're talking about economic things, and we haven't got Kirsten in yet. I'm wondering about these school vouchers. I'm talking to friends in public schools, in private schools, that they're quitting their jobs over these vouchers, okay? And we had a lot of Democrats support that. There was kind of a bipartisan thing. Am I wrong?
Well, that predates my time here in Louisiana.
You're good.
I'm good?
Yeah.
Well, that predates my time in Louisiana. I will say, now that we're looking at the voucher schools and we're looking at the performance of the voucher schools, I really think that Bobby Jindal has fallen down on the job here in promoting the vouchers.
Now, it was Bobby Jindal that brought this.
Absolutely.
But now you've got a big Democrat in New Orleans, what's Duplessis? What's her name? Duplessis?
Former legislator, right.
Former legislator,
right.
Big Democrat, that went to work for him.
Well, you know what, look, at the end of the day, again, we are that big tent, but I think that we look at this on the standpoint of what this governor is doing. This was a legislative achievement for him. This was a huge priority for him, okay?
Which had bipartisan support.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Did any independents vote for him?
Not me.
Huh?
Not me. I got a kid 2 years old that's going to go to a voucher-free private school, and when she's old enough to walk, I guess I'll bring her shopping with me at Walmart. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I do know that the Republican Party has an agenda, and the Democratic Party has an agenda. What's the independent party's agenda?
Independent is to stand up for the regular working guy.
And that's on the internet?
Hey, let me tell you. Hey, the independent voter is what's swinging elections.
Well, look, the independent voter is incredibly smart right now, and they are incredibly valuable to us.
Ex-Democrats, ex-Patriot Democrats, and Republicans.
And a lot of ex-Republicans that have seen to the extreme that this governor has taken us on these issues.
I agree.
Now, when you talk about the voucher schools, okay, I know that there are a lot of private schools who, just like you said, we're not even getting in this business because it's on shaky ground to begin with. And we know that every single time the courts have looked at these questions, the courts have said the governor was out of line, that the legislator was out of line. So when we get back to it, though, we have to think about what this governor is saying every single time. You know, all those crazy ads that he put up on TV, and every single time he goes out of state and talks about, okay, our schools, he's talking about a very small, microscopic almost, group of people that got these vouchers, right, to go to these schools, which we know, as Kirsten just said, are failing. They're not even passing the test themselves.
Well, interest is in the gutter.
But the bigger issue is here, he's actually out campaigning for the failure of our public schools. Okay, by doing this, that is what the governor is doing. He is out there saying that our public schools are failing, and instead of trying to fix them, and instead of trying to look at them, he's putting disincentives in place. He wants to open up these private schools, which we've heard some of them, they don't even have teachers. They have a DVD player.
Well, and let's get this.
Which one is that?
He has taken. It's not just that issue. It's all these issues that he has done as far as the education. You heard earlier about the pension plan. It's a brainstorm that he has, and I don't think he thinks a lot of things through. But we also said at the first of the hour about how some of his people that he has moved into the higher paying jobs, or they making a lot more than his predecessors. It was in the newspaper, I think it was last week, of how much money they have contributed to his campaign fund.
Oh, yeah.
It's phenomenal.
It was completely pay to play. I mean, let's make no mistakes about that. But this governor, the only consideration this governor seems to be making right now is, how will this affect me in the gauntlet that I'm going to have to run, that is the Republican primary for president?
But do you think that for 1 minute, I don't know, do you think he's that naive? That he thinks he has a legitimate shot at the president of the United States? I don't think
cabinet post.
Well, look. I won't even go there, because it clearly seems to me like nothing has dissuaded him thus far. Nothing has dissuaded him thus far in his desire to move up and get elected president. So, clearly the people that are advising him to keep doing this, and he seems to think that he's going to be able to get something. But
it might be right about the cabinet post. That might be what he's shooting at.
Okay,
a cabinet post or a Sarah Palin PAC fund. That's the best he can.
Well, look, if he were following Sarah Palin's playbook, he would have resigned already. So,
he would have resigned if they would have offered him a VP spot.
Well,
he would have.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, he would have.
But at the end of the day, again, this comes back to how this affects real live people, and real live people are suffering here in Louisiana. Okay, it's getting harder and harder to raise a family. It's getting harder and harder to move and make things better. For so long, all of the parents of the world, all of the parents of this country just wanted to make life a little bit better for their kids, right, than what they had it. Okay? Whether we're talking about the civil rights struggle, whether we're talking about coming home from World War II, right? They just wanted to make it a little bit better. So you saw that infrastructure. Look at all the money that we did to build the roads, the interstate system, and the huge bridges and everything. They knew that was actually costing them out of their checkbooks, out of their pocketbooks, right? But they made those investments. Gone are those days, because, just as you mentioned earlier today, all taxes are bad. Well, not all taxes are bad, right? We have to come back to some degree of reality where it's going to take a lot of these investments in order for us to be able to move forward.
Well, let me interrupt you because day before yesterday, or it might have been yesterday, it was in the Advocate about in 2010 they had a glitch in the computer system or a glitch in the thing on how they collected revenue from the oil and gas industry. They are jumping up and down about the Affordable Health Care Act, being able to get on the internet and doing this, where we're talking about hundreds of millions of people that are trying, that we're doing this. Now we're talking about a handful of oil giants here in Louisiana, and it's taken them over 3 years. It's going to be 4 years coming up that they're just now getting this glitch, and they went from $200 and something million, and they shifted the responsibility to another department. But as of 2010, they came up, it was $200 and something million on 100 audits that they did. All right, this other agency did 60-something audits, and they only found $12,000. So there's a big disparity there.
Absolutely.
And it's under this governor.
We're talking with Steve Handwerk, Executive Director of the Democratic Party, and Kirsten Alvanitakis.
That was great.
She's Communications Director. Kirsten, jump in here. What's on your mind today?
Well, I have to...
Yeah, just talk right into it. Okay.
I have to take issue with some of the stuff that you were saying earlier, where you were saying...
Do that.
Well, the Republicans and Democrats are exactly the same, and there's no difference between them.
Did not say that.
But you were trying to put them in the same boat, and I really think you cannot do that.
I did.
Well, we are going to be considering, as Stephen discussed earlier, we're going to be discussing several resolutions at our next State Central Committee to address issues that are going to be of interest to brothers and sisters in labor all across this state. We're going to be talking about the minimum wage. We're going to be talking about the Our Walmart campaign to get respect in the workplace. We're going to be talking about the fast food workers' strikes. I would be very interested to hear if the Louisiana Republican Party will be taking up any of those issues anytime soon. I think that they will not. So I think there is a very clear distinction between the two parties on these issues.
I agree.
And
I agree, but what my point was that the Republicans, as far as their skunks, they'll come after them with a recall. The Democratic Party has not done that. You've got skunks in the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party will not come after them with a recall. That's the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party as I see it. Now, I stand with the Democratic Party on 99.9% of all issues.
Thank you.
I got no problem with that. My problem is find somebody that's not a skunk. When you get a skunk, we're labor. We got to endorse. The Central Labor Body's got to endorse people, and then they leave a skunk there and say, well, it's an incumbent and they're labor friendly, so let's endorse them. And then I walk outside my door with a union shirt on. Oh, man, you guys are backing that skunk, that thief, that scoundrel. I'm the one got to live with this personally, okay? And I got a problem with that.
Well, we would encourage you to hold any elected official accountable when they're not standing up.
But the Democratic Party don't.
Well, but here, this is what I want to say. The other day, our chair, Karen Carter Peterson, the state senator from New Orleans, was at the fast food workers' strike. Were there any Republicans there?
No, I've got no problem with it.
You're fighting a losing battle trying to argue with Mike.
You're not addressing the issue.
I'll address the issue head on, okay? I'll address it head on. I'll go into the fire here, okay? Here's the fact of the matter. this new Democratic Party that we're reinventing right now, we're actually doing something that has never been done in this state before as we reinvent this. One of the things that we rely on is stats and statistics. Out of all of the recalls that you just talked about, how many were successful?
None.
Not a one.
None. The
Not
only one was...
No.
Go ahead.
The only one, but you want to know when Democrats actually did stand up?
Oh.
I seem to think we just got rid of a mayor that wasn't doing her job.
Whoop-de-doo, the mayor of Port Allen.
You're fighting a losing battle.
Look, at the end of the day,
when he gets his mind
you're
made
right.
up, you're not going to change it.
The
You're
99% that you said that you agree with us, I think that that's absolutely wonderful. If we
Right.
want to focus on the 1%, we can, but I'd rather focus on the things that are good. And Kirsten brings up a really good point of where are the Democrats weighing in? Now, look, we're not a monolithic party, okay? And we don't have, we can't say you can't be a Democrat and change your party affiliation. But at the end of the day, look at what happened this last legislative session, okay? Before in this legislature, okay, and I've been around long enough to recognize this, that it used to be that it was only organized via region in the state, okay? If you were from New Orleans, then you didn't support anything that the Shreveport folks wanted to do, right?
That's right.
That's how it was organized. Well, all of a sudden, Bobby Jindal comes in and completely shakes up Baton Rouge and makes it a partisan thing, okay? Democrats, in large part, were kind of late to the game, getting to realize that that's what was going on. But guess what? We have an amazing leader in John Bell Edwards leading our caucus in the House. And for the first time, our members are standing united. They are working so hard together on issues and staying together. Okay, this last legislative session was all new. Bobby Jindal didn't know what hit him, so much so that his key piece of legislation he had to pull in his opening speech of the session. Okay, so let's recognize the good things that we're doing and let's do more of those. Okay, that's where I'm at. Okay, that's what we have to focus on, and that's where I'm rolling up my sleeves and digging in on. Okay, now we're always going to have people that fall off the reservation. Okay, and you know what? I think that we all have to own our own crap, right? That we have to.
Agree.
And you just brought up a good point. There was a certain state senator that campaigned and got the endorsements of labor in large part, and he ended up switching parties, okay, and ended up leaving us on a lot of key legislation that we needed him for. So all of us can do better. All of us can do better. And I think that if we start focusing in on the things that we agree on and stop letting these smaller things that divide us, we're going to get a lot accomplished. All of us can agree that workers need to be treated with dignity and respect.
Well, and I mean, you can go back in time and look at different politicians and what they have done over the course of their careers. We had a senator at one time that pushed big time for prescription drugs and where the federal government paid more and where you couldn't go get your prescriptions from Canada and all that, pushed all that through. And then he retired as being a senator and became one of the biggest lobbyists co-owner of the company itself, the pharmaceutical giant.
Certainly you couldn't be talking about Billy, could you?
Well, I'm just telling you, if you look at, I think a lot of these politicians, and I hate to say this, but it's not just the Republicans, it's the Democrats too, but,
we finally agree on something.
I'm to the point that I would rather my issues, if it's for the working men and women, if we can help 80% of the time,
right.
I want to do that than no percent of the time.
Right, and look,
that's the difference between
we have
me
to
and
realize, especially on the federal level.
I'm a realist.
Yeah, I get that. And on the federal level, though, we have to realize, though, whoever holds the gavel holds all the power, okay? We know right now with John Boehner, okay, leading the House, okay, we know that not one good piece of legislation that we care about will ever even come to the floor.
I agree.
That will be completely stopped.
What
So
about
that's the
Cassidy
cause.
again with Landry? Do you think for 1 second he is for even though he's a doctor of the poor?
Self-proclaimed doctor of the poor?
I mean, do you think for 1 second that we'll get anything out of him, the working people of Louisiana?
Of course not. We won't. And that's why it's so incredibly hard for us to realize where these battle lines are. And while it's great for the four of us to sit down here and have this great conversation, at the end of the day, what concerns me the most is for the people that actually hear the only one part of they're all in it, they're all just like each other, they throw up their hands and they don't vote. That is the biggest thing that we have at risk right now. And we cannot afford anyone taking off on Election Day. We have to have all hands on deck for this upcoming election because there is more at stake now than there ever has been. Okay? And while all of us can agree, even Senator Landrieu, even the President has agreed that there are problems with the Affordable Care Act. The difference is the Democrats want to fix those problems,
right.
Republicans want to get rid of it.
Well, and again,
which they can.
And I'm going to tell you, it just amazes me. It amazes me how they look at things differently with a Democrat and a Republican. I mean, they're wanting to just come down on President Barack Obama about the affordable health care because of the internet. But yet we read in yesterday's paper how big oil and gas, in 2010 they had a little glitch in this computer thing, and they haven't been, going on 4 years,
right.
and we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, when we can't, we're worried right now that we're going to have a problem, that the legislation's going to have to bring up something about the health care because Bobby Jindal has turned that down. But with that being said, again, he's one of the ones that's got that torch that's yelling and screaming about the internet problem.
Right.
He can't fix the stuff in his own backyard,
right.
and he's
going
to do something else.
We also, didn't we just hear on the Take Out the Trash Day in the press that the government, the Louisiana government system was potentially compromised, and people using their Chase cards to actually get their refunds from the Internal Revenue Service here in the state.
But he's blaming...
Right, but he's blaming others. So, at the end of the day, the website had a glitch. But also, too, guess what? No offense, this might hurt you real deep. but Walmart's website crashed on Black Friday, so I'm just saying, okay? Technology has
I wasn't in there on Black Friday, man.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Kirst?
The website is working now.
The website
It works fine. I went to the website.
Yep.
The website works.
But what I'm saying is, isn't it amazing how we harp on an issue until it's one of theirs?
Yeah.
That's a 7-day issue. That's a 7-day issue for Fox and MSNBC, and if you watch one, you got to watch the other one to get both sides of the story, the slant. But
and then we're sitting here as a state.
I mean, Rachel Maddow is the only one that's worth a crap on either one of those stations.
And I'm sitting there and I'm reading the paper yesterday, and we've got this guy that's supposed to be this real, I don't know what you would call him, but it just baffles my mind how we can sit there and on pins and needles and worry about this guy possibly running for governor. Who's
that?
And well, hold on. I want you to figure out who it is, because if he runs for governor, none of the other candidates are going to get in the race because he is that powerful. This is the same guy that got his hand caught in a cookie jar. This is the same guy. If it would have been a Democrat, we'd have been impeaching him. We did. He was the one of the biggest spokesmen about impeaching a president for the same thing he did, or worse. And so this is Louisiana. Again, if you're a Democrat, you got one set of standards. If you're a Republican, you got another set of standards. His set of standards is he doesn't admit it. He just washes it down the road, and everything's honky dory with him. But if that would have been a Democrat, they'd have been screaming and hollering for what he did.
Right. Well, Kirsten,
You talking about impending Governor Vitter?
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, I don't believe that other Republicans will get out of the race simply because Vitter runs. I think Darden will probably stay in. Kennedy's talking about running. I think this myth of the infallibility of David Vitter and Bobby Jindal, that they're some sort of political geniuses. Look, Bobby tried to set up his buddy Neil Reiser to win in the 5th district. He put every card on the table trying to get him elected.
Yeah, but
the only thing that beat him was the camo guys from the Duck Show that this genius lives by, okay?
But Bobby...
Can you imagine? He's over a union with 2,000 people in it, and his Thursday nights are spent watching guys in camo.
Love it.
With making duck calls.
They're entertaining.
Very entertaining.
Even our chair, Karen Carter-Peterson, likes to watch Duck Dynasty from time to time. But again, so we're talking about the infallibility of Bobby Jindal and David Vitter. David Vitter's so smart. Did he run out and buy Vitter for governor? No, he didn't.
Oh, no.
The Louisiana Democratic Party.
Jesuit educated.
Well, but we own VitterForGovernor.com. We'd encourage everybody to go to that website, VitterForGovernor.com, and check it out. He was planning for running for governor for at least the past year, set up a super PAC where he's raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he couldn't even bother to spend $10-20 on a website. So I just think that's kind of amateurish.
What is that again? What's the website?
So the website's VitterForGovernor.com, and you'll go and you'll see articles about all he's done to raise money over the past year, saying, I'm still thinking about running for governor. It's why would you be raising hundreds of thousands of state dollars if you weren't going to run for governor? So.
Absolutely, and so much for these Rhodes Scholars, because
How about some working people? Let's get some doctors and nurses and pipe fitters here in Baton Rouge making decisions.
No, let's not get no pipe fitters.
Well, I do think that it's high time, and one of the things that I've said frequently, it's part of my regular speech now as I go around and meet with different folks throughout the state, is that the biggest recruiter right now that we have for the Democratic Party is Bobby Jindal. His policies, because of his overreach, it seems like he wants to prove his conservative bona fides in order to be able to move himself forward and promote himself on the national stage. But time and time again, all of these major legislative priorities of his have been shown to be
flawed.
Exactly.
Unconstitutional in several instances.
Exactly.
Even though he was pre-warned that it was.
Oh, multiple times. And then look at all of the scandals that we also have going on. CNSI is a very good example of that, of the pay-to-play, buddy, it's who you know type situations that are going on here in Baton Rouge. And this governor would seem to think, and he portrays himself to be, the next conservative messiah, if you will. It's really kind of scary when you look at, the things that he's engaged in here on the state. So, one of the things that I find probably most troubling is, and perhaps it's because, my parents are state workers. Well, were until they retired. Okay? They live in Ohio, so they know a little bit about people attacking their pensions. They know a little bit about that because of their Governor Kasich up there, who has done such a horrible, so much so that the people had to rise up and actually pass a constitutional amendment against him. But when you look at these, especially, and why I'm so excited about our Central Committee taking up the resolution to protect our pensions, especially for our first responders, our firefighters, and our police officers, it's so incredibly important that we do this, because what folks don't always realize, and it's probably because they're not used to this in their own world of working at some sort of corporation, is the deferred compensation that you're getting. You're signing that contract to work, okay, as a police officer or a firefighter, and you are taking a lower wage in order to get the pension for the future.
As in Detroit.
Right, as in Detroit. Perfect example.
Perfect example.
Right. And as I was driving in, I'm listening to them saying that they're worried about selling. All this art that the city owns.
Yeah.
Well, you want to sell the art, give it to the pensioners. give it to those individuals who have served and sacrificed. Because, you know what? Especially when we're talking about firefighters and police officers, those individuals actually, when there is an emergency and we're all running away from it, they're running towards it. Okay? They're running towards it. And oftentimes, okay, not making that much money to begin with. Okay? And then we're going to start assaulting them and their families at a time when they need it most. What are they supposed to do? Go and become a Walmart greeter? Again, no.
Hey!
No offense.
They put that job on hold. They know there's no more greeters. You're listening to Baton Rouge Labor Radio on WTQT 106.1, LPFM, and WTQT.org. We're speaking with Stephen Handwerk, Executive Director of the Louisiana Democratic Party, and Kirsten Alvanitakis. Best I can do. She is the Communications Director of the Louisiana Democratic Party, and I am the devil's advocate here this morning, and we're just trying to do that.
Well, I got a question for the Communications Director. As far as getting out not just the vote, getting out the vote, yes, that's one thing, but also getting people registered to vote. What's our, can y'all tell us how y'all are doing that, or how we get involved as far as we need more people registered to vote. It's really a shame that we don't have. That was a requirement with my two kids. Period. End of that conversation. They're both registered to vote. Now if they go vote, that's a different story. But my youngest one just turned 19, and my oldest one's 22, and he just turned 22. But I mean, at 18 years of age, they're doing the same thing that I was required to do. But back then you had to go register, for the draft, and also, you were right there. You might as well register to vote. So, but now. They are, both of my boys are registered to vote. How do we change people's mindsets on that?
Well, the first thing is we are definitely going out there and registering folks to vote. We had a bunch of people down at the Bayou Classic actually the other weekend talking to people and making sure that they were registered to vote. But really, that's just the first step of being a citizen. The second step is you've got to be educated and informed, and we provide a lot of resources on our website and also via social media and email to stay informed and engaged with what's happening in Baton Rouge. People think, I go out and vote for the president every 4 years. That's enough. It really isn't. You've got to vote in every election, and you've got to stay informed and engaged with what's going on at your state and local levels, because that's where the decisions are being made that really affect you, that affect where your kids go to school and what kind of schools they go to, that affects health care and whether your local hospital stays open or ends up getting closed. So I think it's important to stay engaged and informed, and what you can do is you can go to our website, louisianademocrats.org, and check it out and sign up for our email alerts. We'll email you every couple of days letting you know what's going on. Also follow us on Facebook. We're on there. It's Louisiana Democratic Party. And also if you're on Twitter, we've been tweeting this morning already about our appearance, and if you go to twitter.com/LAdemos, you can follow us on Twitter too.
Even a no-party voter can do this?
Absolutely. We welcome our Republican friends to see what we're doing, and I know that at least a few of them are on our email list and watch it with great intensity. So there's no better flattery than seeing that the other side is interested in what you're doing.
I've got a couple of personal friends that were, back, and I'm going to be honest with you, 40, 50 years ago, everybody was Democrats in Louisiana. I mean, let's be real.
The Ku Klux Klan was Democrats
but
50 years ago.
Over the years...
You're killing me. You're killing me.
I'm just stating the facts, Jack.
But over the years, that has changed. It really has changed.
We're Democrats in Louisiana, excuse me, Neil, because Lincoln won the war. They're Democrats in Ohio and Wisconsin because Lincoln won the war. I mean, they're Republicans in Wisconsin and Ohio because Lincoln won the war. We're Democrats because Lincoln won the war down here.
But what I'm getting at is we've got older people. I've got a real good friend of mine. He's a registered Democrat.
Too lazy to change his affiliation.
He hasn't changed his affiliation. He hadn't voted Democrat in 35 years. You know why? Because
Lincoln won the war.
No, why? Because when he registered to vote, his daddy. Same thing with mine. Right. I tell you what. My daddy would roll over in his grave if one of my kids registered as a Republican. But I mean, that was that's just the way it is. But we've got people out there, and I'm glad to hear about your website. I'm glad that we're out there trying to get these people. We've got a younger generation that just don't have a clue on what's going on.
Well, this is where I'm gonna come up against you on that, because I disagree. Okay. You know what? We certainly had about a decade of younger folks completely checked out on the political process. That is dramatically changing over the past 4 years at least.
Give us some examples.
Here's a great example. We tried and tried. I live in Lafayette. Okay, we tried and tried.
Good mayor over there.
No, well, I'll have to
the internet going.
I'm going to disagree on that one too. On that point, yes. On our fiber optic to the home,
he got the internet going when nobody else would.
And Cox Cable, you're absolutely right. I was a part of that campaign and ran it from the Democratic side, and I was proud to join with my.
Don't get sidetracked. Go ahead and finish.
But what was I talking about? Young people.
He's good at that.
Okay, so young folks. We tried to get a college Democrats group up and running, and it was almost impossible. I was just at a forum the day before they went on break for Thanksgiving, okay? And we had a packed room of great Democrats in there wanting to learn about the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, and wanting to learn about what was going on. And it was hosted by the college Dems. I went to speak to a meeting. I figured I'd have like 6 or 7 people there. After all, it's Lafayette, right? Mm-hmm. The room was packed. It was a little classroom, okay? They had to move to a bigger room now. So folks are getting engaged, and I was blown away by the amount of knowledge that these young folks had, okay? I was not that well plugged in, okay, when I was 19 or 20 years old, okay? The amount of knowledge that they had and the level of discourse that we were able to have, I was thoroughly impressed. Now, that could be because they have a great student advisor down there, Dr. Pearson Cross, or because they have a great leader in Joel Jolivet as their president, but at the end of the day, folks are getting plugged in, and I'm so incredibly energized by that. And they're not just plugged in because of Barack Obama and hope and change, right? They're plugged in because they see the cuts that are being made to our universities. They see
absolutely.
The cuts,
the highest in the nation.
Exactly right. Where it's completely flopped. It's completely flopped. It used to be that if you wanted to go, you were a Louisiana citizen and you wanted to go to our state colleges, you probably had to come up with about 30% of the cost. Okay? You or your family had to come up with that cost, right? Now it's completely flopped. Now you have to come up with 70% of it. Okay? And our universities are cutting programs right and left. Okay? That's not how you grow an economy. Okay, right now, the short-term gains that we're getting on Bobby Jindal's budget, okay, are not going to be sustainable because our future depends on having well-educated individuals coming to our state.
And I'm glad
and then staying here.
And I'm glad you said that because, I just said I've got a 22-year-old. And Mama's listening right now, and I can promise you that will not only break her heart, it's going to break my heart when he leaves to go to a better paying job somewhere else. What we failed to, that's why I'm so glad that y'all were involved in the fast food, getting that money up, the minimum wage up. We've got a lot of work that is forecast for the Louisiana area in the next 7 to 8 years. And if we don't get a living wage, if we don't get a wage that is compatible with the rest of the country, and when I say the rest of the country, I'm not talking about Massachusetts and the East Coast. I'm talking about Ohio. I'm talking about, the workers, the working men and women. If we don't get our wages up, and I'm talking about in the construction industry, because once you get the work up, and it's my opinion, and I mean, you can chime in anytime you want, but if we don't get the construction workers, that's the start. When you get the construction workers pay up, first thing you got to do is get the minimum wage up. When you get the minimum wage up, then you're going to be able to help these fast food restaurants. You're going to be able to help the Walmart workers. And then there's construction workers. Then guess what? Then it's computer engineers. Then it's some of the other ones, that
you're absolutely right. And I know for a fact that here in Louisiana we have some of the lowest paid nurses in the nation. Okay, and when you've got to go to school for so long, okay, in order to be able to
what about
get
our
the
teachers?
Well, look, I completely agree with that, but I guess in my opinion, and I've been out there fighting every single day for our teachers, nurses haven't been brought into the conversation.
Oh, I agree.
And I think it's incredibly important for us to recognize the service that they do. Okay, nurses are making life and death decisions every single day.
I know
for their
nurses
patients.
making $13 an hour.
Exactly, and that should be a crime.
With the
that
education
should be,
they have.
and the student loans that they have.
Yeah.
That they're still in their mid-40s and they're paying off their student loans still.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this because it's near and dear to me, and that's my wife. She's a second grade school teacher. So how can you bring somebody through 4 to 5 years of education, some more than that, that have their masters, and they can just go right there and cross that state line, and make 30% more, 40.
Absolutely.
If they want to go a little bit further, they can double what they can make here.
I'd be out like Seacrest.
Yeah, but
and the interesting thing though about that conversation with teachers, and this is why I have even more respect for teachers, is because oftentimes the consideration is not necessarily even what they bring home in their paycheck. It's the things in the classroom, okay, that are making it more and more difficult. When you're talking about a second grade teacher who now has 35 students in a class, that's unacceptable, okay? How can they have the effect that they need to have on those kids to get them set up with the practices that they're going to need to have in order to be able to move forward and be successful once they reach high school? It's not going to work. So, a lot of the teachers are they're concerned about their wages, but the bigger thing that they're concerned about is the working conditions in which they have. In Lafayette, I know this for a fact, they couldn't even pass a resolution because we had the Tea Party come in and weigh in, but we have, I don't want to say the majority, but we have a large portion of the students attending school in portable buildings.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. I can't see, I didn't go to school in a portable building, okay? I had a nice classroom that was actually heated and cooled. It was actually in a good condition. Teachers can't even talk about that today.
Well, we've been bouncing around back and forth. The last few minutes, I think, ought to be y'all's minutes to explain, to tell the audience, what's coming up. I know y'all got a busy session coming up. How the people, or how our listeners, not only their families and friends that they can talk to, but just reach out there and how they can help do this. Tell us what y'all got going on. You got about 5 minutes.
Sure. Well, with the legislative session coming up, it's going to start on March 10th, but we're going to be doing all kinds of organizing and educating before session. And so when March 10th comes, we're ready to come out of the gates running. And I think it's very important, again, for people to stay engaged and informed and follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, sign up for our email alerts. We're going to be talking about issues that we talked about today. We're going to be talking about issues that are going to help make this economy work for workers for the first time.
If they're going to follow you, how do they do that?
Well, sure. If you go to twitter.com/LADemos, LADEMOS, that's where we're on Twitter. If you go to our website, louisianademocrats.org, you can sign up for our email alerts, and you can also like us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Louisiana Democratic Party. And we send out periodic updates via email. We post probably once or twice every day on Facebook, and we're sending tweets all the time. So if you're one of those people that likes fast-breaking news, I would definitely say check us out on Twitter. You're going to see what we're doing minute by minute, actually. But I think during the session, we're going to be talking about issues that are important to workers. We're also going to be talking about issues that are important to all Louisianians, like trying to make it easier for people to vote rather than the Republicans continuously trying to make it harder for people to vote. We're going to be talking about trying to get a budget that actually works for all Louisianians instead of seeing continued tax breaks for big corporations. Those just don't work anymore. We need a budget that actually works for Louisiana.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that I want to point out is, I know not all of our listeners right now are Democrats, but hopefully they will be. But following us and seeing what we're doing, I think, is important too. But I also want to know, for those Democrats out there that are actually helping us, whether they're retweeting or whether they're liking things on Facebook or maybe they might be donating as a sustainer, okay, to help us keep our efforts forward. Your Democratic Party now has 13 full-time staff working for you. In an off-election year, that's unheard of, okay? We have regional organizers that are all over the state that are working very hard, day in and day out, reaching out to folks, talking to them, and engaging them. We need you involved. Just like Eric said in your first hour, reaching out, talking to your legislators, making sure this is the time to do it. Don't wait until session comes up because they get busy. They start getting these little note cards passed to them. Get to them before they get the note card.
And with that, I want to thank Stephen Handwerk, Executive Director of the Louisiana Democratic Party, and Kirsten Alvan Itakis. I'm struggling with that. Who is the Communications Director of the Louisiana Democratic Party. And we're on WT. This is Baton Rouge Labor Radio, and we're on WTQT 106.1 LPFM. And we're also broadcast in Shreveport. Bet you guys didn't know that. On TV. We're waiting to get Neil's shiny head.
My pumpkin-looking self.
Pass me another donut. K3 1.2, and in Alexandria, channel K38.2. And I'm sure that independents, Democrats, and Republicans can all agree on this. If you work for free, you'll always have a job. Live better, work union. Have a nice day.